I'd love to read the bio for Dr. Jim Alfonso, and it starts here with Visionary Caring Leadership. At the 2018 International Caritas Consortium, Jim was honored by Jane Watson as the third recipient of the prestigious Visionary Caring Science Leadership Award. Jim was also awarded an honorary doctorate in caring science by Dr. Jane Watson to honor his career long devotion to transformative leadership, scholarly teaching, and practices in human caring. As a pioneer member of Watson's International Caritas Consortium, Jim helped outline the ontological competencies of caring literacy and other strategies to bridge theory and praxis. Jim was appointed CNE and COO of Watson Caring Science Institute in 2008. During his tenure, Jim led the design and launch of the Caritas Coaching Educational Program, the development of WCSI's prestigious and growing faculty, the integration of heart math slash heart science teachings, and the development of the expanded WCSI website and student portal. Among other contributions, Jim was a co-creator of the WCPC, which was the Watson Caritas Patient Score Instrument, and the accompanying State of the Science poster. For over 25 plus years, Jim has conducted workshop, consulted, and lectured on caring science across the United States and internationally, including Denmark, Norway, Japan, Italy, the Philippines, and the United Kingdom. Jim holds a DNP with a focus in executive leadership from the University of San Francisco, where he serves as adjunct faculty for the School of Nursing and Health Profession. He is also a lecturer at the University of California, San Francisco School of Nursing. He is board certified nurse executive, a Watson Caring Science coach, a heart math trainer, a distinguished fellow of the Nursing Academics of Practice, and 2020 was inducted as a fellow of the American Academy of Nursing. Jim has published extensively, including his scholarly work on aligning theory and evidence-based practice to enhance human flourishing in nurse executives in 2017, and the book Kaiser School of Nursing, A Legacy of Disruptive Innovation in 2020. He co-authored a chapter in the text Visionary Leadership on Quantum Caring Leadership in 2020. Today, Jim is an executive director for professional excellence for KP and the founding executive director of the KP Scholars Academy in Northern California. It's the largest, KP NorCal is the largest WCSI affiliate and an international exemplar for caring science, heart science systems accreditations. KP NorCal supports regional wide caring science and heart science offerings, including over a decade of annual KP Caritas Consortium. There is so much more, but the rest of the bio will be in the description. But enjoy the show. Greetings, and welcome to When the Moment Chooses You. I am your host, Coach Charlene, and oh my goodness, I have the one and only Jim D Alfonso with me today
Uh,
to finish out our Caring Science series, and it has been a wonderful series. So, welcome to the show, Jim.
Thank you so much. What an honor. As I mentioned before, I'm thrilled to be a part of this. So thank you for inviting me, Charlene. I've loved watching your work grow. So it's a true inspiration.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. So, as I've been explaining, is I decided because this was like literally one of my moments, that chose me when I start thinking about the name of my podcast, When the Moment Chooses You. And in my career, this was one of those moments that I moved from burnout to purpose and power and passion with Caring Science. And that's why it really was on my heart to do something about Caring Science for Nurses Week, Nurses Month, because I've seen the impact for me personally. And as I continue to ignite the fire in other people, I'm seeing such a beautiful fire just get started to reinvigorate our profession and other healthcare workers as well. So, Jim, that's really what this is all about. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are for those that don't know you?
Well, like I said, that's the proverbial question of the ages. Who are you? And of course, like you, there was a time and space when I too had this, I would call it a quickening in my spirit and caring science. I never looked back, and that was a long time ago. But I'm Jim D'Alfonso. I'm the executive director for professional excellence and in patient care services in Northern California. But I also have the great gift and blessing to be the executive director for the KP Nurse Scholars Academy, the Caring Science Academy, and other academies that are basically come from Northern California and serve all of Kaiser. So it's that's who I am in the present moment. But there's so much more, right? And I would
Yeah.
say, why am I here? Like you, I found my purpose a long time ago, and it was through the gift of Dr. Gene Watson. I've had the joy of working with Gene since the mid 90s. And I lived in Colorado, went for my graduate degree in Colorado, and got to know Gene through an awards ceremony that I'd been nominated for that she started back in, I don't know, the 80s. And I met her and she said, email me. And I think we laughed because everybody emails Jean and she always responds. That was
Yeah.
that was the beginning of our relationship. I was a nurse leader back then and became an executive. I really wanted to, lift nursing up. I too, like you, was burnt out. I would say burnt up because our systems are broken. I think we acknowledge that. And I was working in a for-profit system that had just done a huge takeover. So it was a very stressful time, and there was a nursing shortage going on. So,
Mm.
keep piling it up. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
History repeats itself in some ways. Some things are, immutable. But anyway, what happened was I asked Jean to help me. And from that moment on, she invited me to her international consortium. There were a very small number of us, I would say 6 or 7 people. And just like today, everyone said, I wish we could do more of this. It feeds my soul. I feel so much better when I'm around you, Jean. What is it? And it really was learning more and more and more about self discovery, and learning more about how I can bring my whole self into my profession, which was
Yeah.
really major for me. I went on to be a chief nurse executive and a vice president and have carried caring science everywhere I went. It's been instrumental in 2 magnet journeys that I helped lead. One was Scripps in La Jolla, and the other was in Scottsdale, which was a system. And in the process, Gene was talking about forming an institute. This was around 2008, 2009, and the beginnings of WCSI were, percolating. And it happened that I was given the opportunity to have a between space. And I reached out to Jean, and she had asked me if I would help her. And I said, I've got time. I got all the time in the world now, so let's think about what we can do. And that's
Yeah.
when she had already been on the path. Of course, I just joined the path as her chief nurse executive and COO for Watson Caring Science Institute, and that's when we took off. The rest is history. In that time,
Absolutely.
in 1 year's time, we had done over $1 million worth of book business. Not too shabby for 2 nurses, a lot of volunteers, and a couple of people that we worked with on marketing and creating websites and whatever. That's also the time when the Curitas Coach program was created. We did that as a way of spreading the word. Isn't it amazing? Like you said, why is this stuff so difficult to spread? It's amazing how
Right.
bad stuff spreads like crazy. Just
I
look
know.
around you.
That's like
And all
automatic.
the good stuff just really takes a while to sink in, and really, the things that we need the most seem the most intangible. We
Yeah.
started doing all kinds of programs over the country, and we also were traveling abroad as well. I did programs in Kyoto for Gene. We went to Italy together, so we were out and about, and
Yeah.
it grew. And on one magical day in 2010, I came to Kaiser Permanente at the request of the nurse leaders here. It was Anita Zuniga was the regional chief
Mm-hmm.
nurse executive. Ann Foster-Rant was a CNO
Yes.
at Antioch, which was just opened or in the process of it. And Esther Kern
Yes.
Froelich, who was was out in the, I don't know if she was at Santa Rosa or do you remember, Charlene?
I can't remember where she
She ended
was, but
up
I
in
remember
Antioch
meeting
and
her.
then Oakland, I know, but wonderful people, really excited. They weren't the first system we worked with. We actually worked with the VA system, and you may know Cheryl and other people from the VA in
Yes.
Atlanta. But Kaiser was really on fire, and Anita Zuniga really wanted caring science to be the foundation for transforming Kaiser. And I came out, we went to a big meeting with Greg Adams and all the executives across Northern California at Preservation Park in Oakland. And Greg got
Mhm.
up in front of that entire group of his leadership team and said, "This is perhaps the most important thing we're ever going to do. We're going to transform the culture. We're going to use caring science." And Gene, myself, and others spent several days here. I spent a couple of days with the CNEs at that time and helped share with them what caring science was all about, how it could be used to transform organizations from the inside out, one person at a time, and lift the
Yes.
culture to where they envisioned it to be. It wasn't shortly after that, within a year, I said to Gene, I've got two girls and a family, and I have to work. Go figure. And I've got to think of my future. And so in 2011, I joined Kaiser Permanente as a CNE at the time in Fremont Medical Center. And I remember Anita saying, Fremont may be too small for you, Jim. And I said, well, let me go. And I went on a weekend and I walked around. And just like you in a lot of Kaiser facilities, I know what it's like to walk into a magnet hospital. And I knew walking into Fremont with no one knowing I was there, just as a little blob, walking around, I felt it was magical and it was ripe and it was perfect timing
Yeah.
for me in my career. So I came to Kaiser Permanente in lightning time because we know we can't hire anybody in less than 90 days. I was on
You're
board
funny.
in, I think, 30 days. And Anita said, I don't think we've ever hired anybody this quick, especially not a CNE. And so I was in line to when the old Hayward Hospital was to close. I was to be the CNE for Fremont because they were too far apart when they opened San Leandro to have one license. And so that
Yes.
was the plan. And as I would say with most of my career, really great intentions. Took advantage of the opportunities, meaning don't sit on the fence when opportunity comes. As you know, you
Yes.
have to leap, and you have to leap on faith. And I came to Kaiser with one vision. I tell people I planted apples, and what I got was oranges. Because Fremont was not meant to be a permanent space for me. It was meant to be that petri dish for me to understand a very complex system, to understand the leadership and opportunities. And then from there, I was asked by Anita to replace Barbara Nourish, who was the executive director for education and operations at the time. And I went to Region in late 2012. So you can see it was like a 2-year period I was at Fremont
Yeah.
to replace Barbara. And I led operations and education and all things nursing for 4 years. And then at the end of those 4 years, there were a lot of transitions going on in the organization. Greg, Marilyn Chow, Janet Liang, really basically took some great ideas from Marilyn Chow and the Institute of Medicine's Future of Nursing and built the Scholars Academy framework and presented it to Greg with budgets. And he said, let's go. And from then on, we've never looked
Absolutely.
back. We've
Yeah.
educated over 1,000 nurses. We have hit every target we were intended to hit for doctoral degrees, master's degrees, and baccalaureate. Certifications are on the roll. Magnet is happening. You know that very well. And we're not looking back. And this past year, I would say the frosting on the cake is the creation of the Caring Science Academy, and creating space for total dedication of resources, which is not easy in a big system, but was built on the success of your work at South Sacramento, work with Linda Ackerman, who was a leader for caring science for many years in Northern California. Very grateful to her and others. And through that, we were able to create the Caring Science Academy on the hard work, dedication, and passion of nurses you worked with at South Sacramento. And now we're
Yeah.
trying to spread that same fire and the flames
Yes.
still over 10 years
Yes.
later, still fanning, almost 15, to spread to all the region.
Yeah, and you know what, Jim? I think that's what's so profound about it. As I began to do this series, and what I recognize, and when I mean, I'm basically coming full circle to see the fruit of your labor, but all of the hard work, all of the dedication, all of the frustration, all of the, all of the emotions that you feel when you feel like you're stuck a little bit and you're not really moving. The work to actually see that it may feel like things are not happening, but really things are happening. As long as you continue to move and continue to do the things that that you're supposed to be doing, the work is still happening as long as you don't lose the fire from it. And that's what I've noticed. And it's so rewarding now to know that, we're going to have challenges. We're going to have to go through different things. But if you can just fight through that at the end of the day, you'll see the manifestation of your dream come to pass. So super awesome.
Well, and I would add to that these ups and downs, Gene calls the vicissitudes, the ups and downs of life are normal. Um,
Yeah.
it I don't know. I do know about you. I do know about myself. I'm deeply spiritual, and I think most people in caring science find that balance between my spiritual life and commitment to a higher being in my personal work, because I am an integrated human being. You can't separate it out
Right.
from me. So if you hear, just like Jean, if you ever pay attention to her work, it is rife with her spiritual and her Christian background. And she loves, and we all do, encompass everybody and their religious beliefs. But for me in particular, I would have to say, I find joy in trusting. And even though, I had a discussion with one of our other leaders the other day, and I said, not everybody that goes through the academy is going to end up, really connected and spreading this work. That's a fact,
Yeah.
you know, and
Right.
you do cast seeds, and some land on rock and some land on fertile soil. And the ones that land on fertile soil flourish and they continue to grow. And that's where you need to focus your energy. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay. We're working in a broken system. We're trying to bring light to it. And that was the
Yes.
original mantra of WCSI was, we are the lights in institutional darkness. And in
Absolutely.
that light, we get to bring all of us to it, and we get to fully engage. And it requires trust. It requires a belief in a higher knowing and a higher being than us. We can't just think we alone can change anything, because without the collective whole, we are nothing. So the individual has to be suppressed, and we have to address the ego constantly. We must say, shut up,
Yes.
you're just noise. Go away. Whatever it takes to build
Yes.
that individual passion that drives us, and we need it, but we must constantly check and balance it, because it's not about us. It's about all of us, meaning it's not about me, it's about we. And a whole
Yep.
campaign we did several years ago was on the power of we. Do you remember that? It
Yes, I
was
do.
helping people understand that collectively together as Kaiser Permanente, we're changing our micro world and we're impacting our macro world, and good things will come. And I have to constantly remind my team, who are brilliant, that just look back a few years and realize that we had no research arm at all. We had no nurses on the IRB. We weren't doing any original research from a global PCS perspective. We had individual scientists who were brilliant, and they were doing their work on their own. Now look at us. We have a
Yeah.
research and innovation academy. We have 3 nurses on the IRB, and we're doing original shared studies amongst 21 hospitals and even in other regions that we never thought was ever going to be possible. But
Absolutely.
we
It's
still want more,
amazing.
right? We want more.
Of course. So, Jim, for those that may be looking that don't really know what that means, what is caring science from your perspective? How would you describe it to them?
Well, I'll tell you how I organize it, and I used to teach it this way many years ago. Is look at yourself as a human being, a beautiful creation, an integrated being. Every cell is interconnected. Everything that happens to your body touches every cell. Every word you utter goes to every cell. Everything you hold in your heart goes to every cell. So you are the most beautiful example of an integrated organic system there is. And think about caring science in terms of the body. There is a head. There is a head that processes information, shapes our world, helps us with new knowledge, helps us with our emotions, helps us in many different ways. But that head is where our belief system and our worldview comes from. So if you see the world as I'm the king, we have examples of this all around us. I'm the king and I'm going to rule the world and you're all going to do what I say. That is called separatist thinking. In other words, only I can do this. On the other hand, in caring science, we have no room for that. That doesn't exist in nursing.
Right.
We are unitary. And so that unitary caring science that Jean talks about is the core of her work is first, you must accept that it's not all about you. It's about all of us together and that system of we're connected, interconnected. We learned this during COVID most beautifully. We felt the collective
Hmm.
anguish, pain, and suffering of humanity around the world. There's no more beautiful example of unitary caring science than to look back at COVID and understand how all of a sudden we were unified
Yeah.
and affected the whole. And imagine if we could collectively get all of that moving in the right direction, how beautiful it would be. The next place I went to in my, kind of assessment of how caring science fits is the eyes. The eyes are the windows to the soul. The eyes help us with clarity. They help us with the ability to discern. They're such precious part of caring science, and our assessments and our scanning the field that Jean talks about, and all those pieces fit in there. And then the third one is the voice. It is the Caritas processes. That is where the 10 Caritas processes live, being and becoming and articulating who we are as caring science nurses and what's important to us in our evolution, because it's not a fixed state. You and I love the bumper sticker that says, be patient, God's not done with me yet. Because the reality is we should have bumper stickers that said, be patient. You know, the
Yes.
universe is not done with me yet, for those who have a more broader view of the world. So anyway, that voice becomes very important because that is how we give voice to our existence, our who we are in the world and how we show up. The heart, of course, becomes very important because the heart is, some people say it is the seat of the soul. And in research and science, they've actually found a little node in the back of the heart that they say could be the actual source of life. And there's lots of scientific opinion and discussion around that. So I'll leave that for people to explore, but it's the kind of stuff I love, is that it translates my belief system into scientific evidence, which is what caring science is about. Evidence, evidence, evidence. So the heart is this beautiful center of our world. It holds us. It is where we generate these electromagnetic waves that connect with others. So it becomes the Caritas field. What we put in the heart matters. And when you talk about where the theory lives, it lives there, not in the 10 Caritas processes. It lives in the caring moment, this heart to
Yes.
heart connection between another individual and another soul, where if, in the words of Carl Jung and others, if two people come together and there's any connection whatsoever, then both are transformed forever. And
Yeah.
nurses know this because they all have patients they will never forget, and they have patients who will never forget them. They have had this caring moment, and we need to focus on creating caring moments within ourselves, quite honestly, as much as everyone around us, our peers, our patients, our families, the people in the supermarket. You're not a nurse part-time. You're not a nurse on the clock. If you think of nursing in that viewpoint, then you miss the point altogether, because you
Right.
are an archetype for healing and caring and compassion and love and wisdom. And there it is, right there, not physically, but
Yeah.
I'm giving a physical explanation of
Right.
it. And we generate this field. So are you putting crap into the field? Or are you putting joy and
Mm.
love? Are you connecting with people, or are you repelling them? So that's the difference
Yes.
between unitary versus, the separatist, you know
Yes.
then you can go to the solar plexus and other parts of the body to explain it, but I typically end with the hands. So I don't mean to give us just a trunk and not talk about the legs or whatever. I just don't think they're that important to kind of translating them all. But the hands are how we practice. The hands
Yeah.
of the body are how we communicate, and we able to deliver care. We're able to implement technology. We're able to comfort, holding a hand, generating a lot through those fingers, and they are not dependent on medicine. They are not dependent on a physician's order. No one needs to tell you to rub a patient's back or rub their feet or hold their hand or pat their head or do whatever. You
Right.
are an independent yet deeply connected part of the healing experience, and you're not dependent upon a physician. I just want to make that clear, because that was a
Yeah.
very important part in educating people that caring science is a different model altogether than medical science. And as Gene would say, if you put a human being in the middle of your scientific experiment, you have an entirely different model than a medical model, because a medical model is separatist. Don't get
Yes.
emotionally involved with your patients. Separate every individual factor out in research and isolate. Oh my goodness, it's the complete opposite
It
science.
is.
So when we understand that we value medical science, or I would say non-humanistic science, because our science is humanistic, human to human, we can value it. We learn from it. It informs us. It is an important part of who we are. It is not all of us. We have our own science, and AMA just a few years ago redefined their definition of nursing. We are no longer medical science, we are caring science. So you see how the
Yes.
future is evolving, where nursing has its own voice, its own science. And, Nightingale had this vision. It would take about 100 years for her work to come to full implementation. I still don't think we're there, and we're over 100 years. But,
Right.
let's be
We're getting there.
optimistic. We're like I
Yeah.
tell my people, we're further ahead than we ever were.
Yes, we
Yeah,
are.
so grab it.
Wow, what a thorough explanation. That's powerful. I love how you put it with the human body. That's really powerful. You've been saying something since we start talking, and I think I heard it when you introduced who you were and everything about bringing your whole self to work. And so, can you elaborate a little bit on that? Because I honestly know people that cover and they don't bring their whole self to work. And so, how can we like integrate that? Meaning, bringing our whole self to work. Is this just done with caring science? What kind of insight can you give us on that?
Well, this is a very individual question, as much
Yeah.
as common things that we all go through as a part of our own evolution as people, and finding our place in the world. And, Mark Twain said there's 2 days that are important: the day you're born and the day do you discover why. Um,
Yes.
and I think
Love
this
that.
is part of the why. I didn't
Yes.
know what I didn't know in my 20s. When I got to know Jean, I all of a sudden was like, oh my God, that's how I feel. Oh my God, that's exactly what I believe. And she actually gave me a voice. That's why I love
Yes.
that connection of the Caritas processes to the voice. Is all of a sudden I had a voice for the things that I already knew in my heart were true. And Jean will say, you guys are already doing this stuff. You just got to give a
Yes.
voice to it. But for me personally, it was a lot of pain and suffering for many different reasons. One, I grew up in a very religious home. I went to a Christian college before I went to nursing. And my story is a little complicated because I was married, and then later discovered that I was gay. So,
Mm.
not in any deceptive mode or personal translation of what happened, but a discovery later in life. And that created lots of problems for who am I for me. And it didn't happen at the age of 15 and 16. Then, how do you reconcile your deep belief system with something that others may not find acceptable? How do you, during a time of AIDS and HIV, when I was a young nurse, talk about who you are when your own discoveries, when people are afraid of you, don't want to work with you, don't want to care for your peers, and you're growing up in this time bubble of where you really feel alone and isolated. And I am not a alone and isolated person. So what you do is you hide. You go undercover.
Yeah.
You go undercover, and it's like, I don't talk about my personal life at work. Well, I hate to say it, but I learned over the years you can't separate out your personal life from your work life. And if my cat dies this morning and it's someone I've spent 20 years of my life with sleeping on my pillow, don't tell me I'm supposed to come to work and just drop that like nothing happened. I take those things deeply serious with individuals who have pets or different life stories, right? But at that time, there was a whole chunk of me that wasn't a part of the picture. I was an excellent nurse, and I loved nursing, man. And just like Benner would say, the technical parts and the focus as a young person was I loved all the technology. I was an ICU nurse, then I was an OR nurse, and anything there was technology going on, I was there. But there's a huge disconnect, and it wasn't until much later in life where I realized I don't. And even as a leader, was afraid of discovery because then people wouldn't promote me or people would treat me differently or I wouldn't be a part of their buddy group going to play golf with their wives. So you can just imagine how complex this is to reconcile. And this is my own personal journey. I'm sure each and every one of you has your own, right? But for me, what I found to be particularly transformative was when I came to Caring Science and the people that I met who were loving and accepting and who wanted you to be a whole and integrated person and celebrated that and were supportive. It changed my life and I couldn't look back. So I still don't talk a lot about my personal life. I don't know if it's necessary. But when I
Right.
do want to talk about my girls or I want to talk about things that are going on in my life, I don't feel fear because Nightingale said, "What little can be done in a spirit of fear." So
Right.
to liberate yourself from fear, anxiety, oppression, sometimes self-inflicted, truthfully, is the greatest gift. And then it frees you up to really do the work on yourself because really the truth is not for me to force my beliefs or to in any way try to shape other people's opinions of whatever they need to work through themselves, but that people at least understand I don't need your approval. I didn't ask for it, but I do expect your respect. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's is very powerful because I think what I have noticed with Caring Science, because it has such a heavy emphasis on the humanity, on you as a human being. So for me to be authentically me, which provides better outcomes, that's really the quest. The quest is for me to be authentically who I am, and I am not moved by other folks' opinions of who I am or anything. So that's how I'm me, because I know I was having a struggle there for a little bit with different types of leaders and things like that because I was being authentically me. And that wasn't really what they wanted me to be. And so when I got free and I got delivered from people, then life was
I
fabulous.
love it. Yeah, don't let anybody cap your light. I
No.
was so powerful, and in many ways, I know in some circles and spheres that I've been in my life, if I evoke insecurity in others, or if I evoke some defense mechanism on others because of who I am, then that's your issue to deal with and to come to terms with. But suppressing or capping my own light and gifts doesn't serve mankind. It doesn't
Yes.
serve my purpose here. And so I can honestly say I really think this is a deeply personal journey. But isn't that what Caring Science implores us to do? Take,
Yeah,
take
absolutely.
a
And
journey,
that's what
yeah, inside.
Yeah, that's what people need to know, that this is such a personal journey. Now, I am constantly a learner and doing work to work on myself. And so when I got to Caring Science, it like really just helped me go so much deeper, like with the Caring Science program, the education program itself. I mean, this was the first time I actually voiced a lot of the stuff that I was feeling.
Hmm.
And so it was so profound to be able to, like, I still have my notes and all of my writings and stuff like that. So I went back and I started reading. I was like, oh my God, I went like all the way in with some of my writings. And so this journey of self-discovery is so powerful. And when you find out who you are, then it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. So I love your story, what you just shared. It was really awesome.
Well, and it's not over. You know, I think
Yeah.
COVID was really hard for me. It's interesting. I always used to say to people, you got to dance with your own dragons, because
Yeah.
all of us come with baggage.
Yeah.
Life is really tough. So
Yeah.
there's nothing easy about it. But I used to say to people, you don't get to the pearl inside an oyster by banging it on a
Yeah.
mattress. It
Right.
takes hard work and sometimes a little bit of banging on a rock to get to the pearl. So if
Yeah.
you look at what people go through COVID in particular, it was a very difficult time for me. A lot of things came up from the 80s, about my practice and some of the struggles I had with a plague at the time. And then all of a sudden we have another, even worse, plague.
Yeah.
Um, so there was a lot in there to really work through. I don't even know if I've done that entirely, but like you said, it's one step in front of the other. It's
Yeah.
get up and keep going. It's a faith, it's a belief system, it's trust, it's a commitment, a passion, and whatever I need to do to myself, whether it's physical, emotional. I'm like you. I read avaricelessly. I used to say I could start a bookstore of self-help books. I think I've read them all. Um, and you know what? That was for me. And I hope whatever I learned through that, I can share through with others as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think about when we're, getting back to like just Caring Science and the essence of love.
Hmm.
Love, that word love. And one of my coaches, he said that his definition for love, because he teaches a youth leadership curricula, and his definition for love was contending with another person for their highest good in every situation until it becomes a manifestation.
Hmm.
So if I love you, I'm gonna be okay with you not being perfect. Like for me, I am constantly being contended with, because guess what? Charlene is alive and living, and she wants to do it her way.
Yep.
So to actually allow God, or whoever you want to call it, to contend with you until you become the best version, the highest expression of yourself is what I want. I want to be able to love beyond face.
Yep.
Love or forgive quick if somebody's done me wrong. You know what I'm saying? That's the real work. And I think Caring Science opens up because Caritas process number one, practice loving kindness toward myself and then toward others. I gotta love me, even the ugly part of
Yep.
me. I had to love, or I had to contend with myself to love who I really was, and then get better and allow the process to make me a better human being. So I think if more people had that love, they wouldn't have all of the judgments. We wouldn't deal with all of the things that we're dealing with. When we teach the Caring Science Academy, I always say, you know what? If we really awesomely do this right,
Hmm.
I personally don't think we need to like integrate EID into it, because it's already integrated
Yes.
into it through the work. Because love doesn't see color, it doesn't see sex, it doesn't see any of that.
Hmm.
And so man, your story is very powerful. See, I'd never heard your story before, Jim. So thank
Well,
you for sharing. I really appreciate your vulnerability.
well, thank you. Thank you for asking, because I think that's another part of it, is being willing to be witness to another person's story.
Yeah.
And, remember those human caring programs? That was before I came to Kaiser. We designed human caring programs for Kaiser, which I think you're referring to at Preservation Park.
Yes.
They were multi-day experiences, and they began with the ability to listen and hold space for another person's story. Do you remember that? And uh,
Yes, I
and then
do.
reflecting on the other individuals. So a lot of these, learning experiences were in ways opening up windows for us to explore ourselves, but also be there for somebody else who's vulnerable.
Yeah.
And isn't that what love is about? And it really is important too for people to understand the word equanimity. And I kind of been focused on that for the past year because I ask people, what does that mean to you? And I'm not
Yeah.
sure a lot of people can define that. What is equanimity? Your story is a beautiful example of, you know, non-judgmental self and others. I used to tell people it's like flipping into neutral. You're in drive all the time, and I'm talking and whatever.
Yeah.
And especially in stressful environments, whether it's personal relationship or at work when a doctor's, um, can you flip it into neutral and be okay with that, or do you have to win a fight? Do you have to have the last word? Do you have to make that humiliate the person? totally,
Right.
totally
Right.
take them down. Um,
Yeah.
or can you flip into neutral and see the human behind the anger, fear, insecurity, whatever, and truly and I'm saying that with a pure heart, love that individual, because I think that's what you're saying. Instead of
Yeah.
me wanting to choke that person to death, which sometimes we do have those emotions. We say to the
Yeah.
ego, no, 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 we don't choke people, play nice. And through that, we have the ability to make this connection with another individual that, quite frankly, would probably otherwise not happen. And I remember an old
Yeah,
saying to me
absolutely.
after a doctor in the hallway kind of dressed me up and down the wall. And I kept acknowledging, I hear you're angry, and I understand that, and I want to understand it more. Let's circle back so you have a chance to process this, and let's go back to my office and have a conversation. And the nurse turned to me and said, "I don't know how you can stand it when they're like that and they're abusive in the hallway and getting all drama." And I said, "Oh, but you misunderstand me. In my opinion, that conversation's just started. It's not over.
Yeah.
I haven't had the opportunity, because I will say one thing: caring science is values based, and it's the ethic, it's the head, how you
Yeah.
process and pull all that together. I have very strong belief systems about how nurses should behave, how they should perhaps not behave. And,
Mm-hmm.
street fighting is not on the menu. So obviously, you hold people accountable. Like you said, if we could just get rid of some of the bad behaviors, the egos, if we could just
Yeah.
help staff realize, when you don't show up and you don't care about the team, other people suffer.
Yeah.
I could believe my first Mother's Day as a CNE, and half the people called in sick because they wanted to be home with their mother. I'm like, who's here to take care of the patients? I'm like, where did this tradition start, right? So I do think you hold people to a different standard as a caring science leader, and it is the tough stuff, not the easy stuff. When people say caring science is all fluff,
The soft
oh, I
stuff.
love you, I
Yeah.
love you, I love you. I love being able to say to my team, I love you guys. I just I value that so much at this stage of my life. But the reality is too, if something is not right, and it's not the standards we've set for ourselves and for others, then I think you got to call it out. And sometimes that's tough stuff. How do you love
Well, and
people
that's the
through it?
love. That's the love. That's the contending.
Yeah.
It's just like with my kids. If they wanted chicken nuggets every day, they wanted chicken nuggets every day.
Uh,
And I couldn't give it to them because I loved them. I had to contend with them.
yes.
And that's what I feel like when I truly love you. If you have a bad attitude, I love you enough to say, hey, Jim, that's inappropriate right now. That is not really representing that brand of love.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? So if we
Yes.
got like to that place, that would
Well,
be
imagine,
powerful.
if you will, we know the number one thing to prevent infections, which are costly in personal consequence, meaning people die from these infections,
Yeah.
not to mention the affordability issues in healthcare related to it. And we stand in the hallway, and I've heard this happen, where a doctor went in a room and didn't wash his hands, or didn't um, clean his hands going in properly, according to policy. And I said to the nurse, well, if you saw a physician go in there, why didn't you say something? Not my job.
Yeah.
Not my job. Well, I will tell you, caring science says it's not about your job. You saw an injustice, you saw something. It could be an educational need, it could be a reminder, it could be because you love that patient and have a connection to them, you want to protect them, so it's an advocacy thing. It could be because you care about that physician. You're just trying to take care of him in the sense of, did you remember to wash in, or I didn't see it, um,
Yeah.
if people could just get out of them against us, they could get out of the stories they tell themselves, and
Yeah.
get to a different place of really understanding how important it is to be fully conscious, fully intentional, lovingly supportive, and advocating for those around them. Imagine the world we could create. You'd have 100% compliance with hand washing, I believe.
Yeah.
Your care
Yeah.
experience scores would not be in the toilet.
Right.
Your culture would radiate love in all ways, meaning wellness, safety, joy at work, a sense of connectedness and retention. All those things that we focus on as metrics and numbers would take on a whole different dimension.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree with you. So, Jim, I've asked a lot of my guests about, when you hear someone tell you, like if someone told you, and I'm sure they've told you this, that, you know what, Jim, I just don't have enough time. What would you say?
Well, I am a huge fan of Tim Porter O'Grady, who is a nursing icon and legend, and had the opportunity. He was my teacher, he was on my doctoral committee. And of course, his work, I am deeply supportive of, because it now is connected to caring science. We did a book chapter, and they did an article on quantum caring leadership. And so, for those people who want to read about the integration of caring science into leadership, I would suggest you go seek that out. But Tim Porter Grady always says to people, listen, time is no longer an argument. And I just love when he says it, because he does it in such a neutral way. But the truth is the first thing we go to when we're overwhelmed and we feel we're up against the wall, we feel we're, being asked to do too much or whatever, is we use time as an excuse for not doing something, instead of seeing the infinite possibilities they are to integrate everything. So I don't see problems, I see possibilities. And when I say that, I say to my team all the time, stop focusing on the problem. Look at all the other options you've got. So tell me you don't have time. Why? Oh, I've got to do this, all task. I'm not asking you to commit another task. I'm asking you to connect to a patient. So when you're doing something, are you looking at them in the eye? Are you having a meaningful exchange with them? Are you touching their hand and talking with them before you do your task, and afterwards checking with them to see how they're doing, if they need anything? I said, this doesn't take time. It's
Yes.
integrated into who you are. So if you don't have time to see another person's need and to help meet that need, then you really need to do some work. And maybe you need a break. Maybe you need to take some time off. I'm not sure
Yeah,
what that is, but you better figure it out quick, because time is not an excuse for not caring.
that's right. That's good. That's a great ending right there. That was a mic drop. So, okay, Jim. So, there's someone out there that's stuck.
I know.
They need to be inspired. I mean, they're probably like super inspired now after hearing you talk. But if there is someone that's like stuck, Jim, that like really are struggling, and they may not have even dealt with, they may not know about caring science, and they may not even know what to do. So, what would you say to that person right there? So they could be a nurse, a healthcare professional, and they just may be trapped into 2020 with all of the different things that occurred in 2020. Is there any inspiration or encouragement that you can give them?
Yeah, I think constantly of those times when I've been stuck. in my own life, because I think we all have experiences with that for many different reasons. And quite frankly, it doesn't go away just because you have a wonderful belief system and a great worldview. You're still going to have to cope with things throughout life. Tragedy, that's part of the human experience, right? When you feel down, the worst thing you can do is sometimes you need to go off, have a cry, do whatever
Yeah,
you need to
for
do,
sure.
and heal a little bit. But the most important thing you can do is not the number of times you got knocked down, but as they say, the number of times you got back up. You realize there's this again becomes worldview and belief system. We do not exist in a vacuum. We cannot thrive in loneliness. We
Yeah.
have to get out and connect, whatever that is. Go walk in the woods, go smell the flowers, go pet the dog, and gradually move your way back. But the things I mentioned to you, like the podcast, is a wonderful way of I can listen to it in my own time and space. I can be fed. It's a part of feeding from another person. There are
Yeah.
lots of things we can do to really, come out of our hurt space and move toward healing. And it doesn't happen alone. You need others. Find your tribe, seek out the people who you can connect with. Don't surround yourself with people that are doubters, negative, and are just going to join your pity wagon.
No.
Get over to the other side where people say, "Oh, come on, Charlene, let's go do this," or "You know what? I know you don't feel like it, but let's just do it anyway," and can help you, push through, because that's what it's
Yeah.
about. Push through. Surround yourself with people who give you strength, lift you up, make you feel good, make you smile and laugh, because that's the quickest healing medicine is laughter. And
Yes.
before you know it, that gray cloud will move on, and you'll be out of that. Doesn't mean
Absolutely.
you're
That's
never going to experience it. You know.
yeah. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for that, Jim. So one I usually ask about, I want to know from your perspective, what do you see as the future for nursing, for healthcare with caring science in particular? What's your dream? What would you like to see?
Yeah, for years I've said to people, I see a future where nurses are not led by leaders who have never touched a patient. Um, I see a future where nurse leaders are educated to the highest degree, doctoral degree, and are able to give voice to nursing, are able to stand up to the nursogyny. It's not misogyny anymore, it's nursogyny. Nurses are the
Hmm.
largest part of the workforce. Tim would say we need to move from the left side of the ledger to the right side of all the values that we bring to the organization. And I think we don't need physicians and we don't need MBAs to tell us our business. We need to
Yeah.
cultivate strong, capable, competent, confident nurse executives who can stand on their own. I love that Kaiser has a nurse as their president and leading this organization. That is very powerful. I would like to see more of them at that level.
That's awesome.
And I'm not in any way disparaging or saying anything negative about the leaders that we do have. I just see the future as nurses being able to fill those spaces and to do it in a way that deals with artificial intelligence, that deals with technology integration, that deals with these scores that others try to bring exterior models like hotel models into healthcare. Well, you're not the Hyatt Regency. And others who think they have all the answers to, if the nurses would just do this, you would get that. Well, we're not that
Yeah.
simple. Our systems are
Yeah.
complex, our interactions with patients are complex. And where everyone focuses on, will AI take my job? And will I have a job? My coaching to others who are now out there talking about it, and we have quite a few in our own team who are very popular in nursing and do a lot of speaking. And I keep going up to that one individual and saying, don't leave out the end. You will never be without a job as a nurse with AI, because we can never allow, morally or ethically, technology to replace human to human connection
Yeah.
and the
Absolutely.
need for touch and the need to look into another human's eyes, not a robot. So in the future, I see nursing really coming into its own. I think Jean has held that vision for over 40 years now. And I see, after I'm gone, we're just built. I feel like I'm a bridge builder. I help connect the dots between some of
Yeah.
the complicated language of theory in the early days. That was my main place in carrying science, was to translate it into English or into
Yeah.
language. I did a lot of that and still do. And I think really the important part is to not give up, throw the towel in, be frustrated. I think it is to persevere.
Yeah,
Persevere.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much for that. So, before we end, I always ask my guests to give us three wisdom gems. So, they would be like gems top three. And I'm leaving it open for you to answer it however you want to answer it. So, inspire us and give us three wisdom gems.
I wrote down three quotes that I liked. Okay.
Okay, cool.
Um, One says, "A wise man was asked, 'What is the meaning of life?' He replied, 'Life itself has no meaning. Life is an opportunity to create meaning.'"
Mm,
Mark
good.
Twain once said, "Two of the most important days, as I said before, are the day you're born and the day you discovered why. Find your purpose. And if you haven't found it yet, keep looking." The other is, offer your light, use your voice, live each day on purpose, and help build a world where you want to live or leave to your children and grandchildren. Know your line in the sand, what you stand for in life. Because if you don't know what you stand for, you will fall for everything. The
Absolutely.
last
Wow,
one,
those are powerful.
last one. Surround yourself, and I've kind of woven these in without realizing it.
I know you did. You
Surround
did.
yourself with people who make you hungry for life,
Mm.
touch your heart, and nourish your soul. Find your tribe. I've edited those to my own.
Yes.
I can't attribute
Well,
one meaning.
they are all powerful. Like we could probably spend at least about another hour on unpacking all three of those. You actually integrated that through your whole talk, all of those.
Good.
So that's really powerful. Yeah. So thank you so much, Jim. And anything else you want to add? And can people get in touch with you?
Oh, sure. Actually, I tried to emulate my mentors. So, like Gene, I try to respond to every email I get, and I would encourage people to write. It's amazing to me how few people actually reach out. For years, I've done programs in KP, and I always tell people, write me, drop me an email. You need a helping hand, you need someone to listen to you, or you need some advice. I might not have the answer, but I'm here. And how very
Yeah.
few ever take advantage of that. Uh,
You are actually really, really responsive. I remember when I started my master's and you came and you spoke. And I just thought it was really powerful what you said because you really were. I mean, what I saw is you holding nursing at a higher level. And so we're getting ready to start this nursing program during COVID-19.
yes,
And,
COVID cohort.
and
Yeah,
yeah, you were just like totally encouraging us. And you said, if you have any problem whatsoever with anybody, you reach out and you talk to me. And I was like, wow, that is pretty powerful. And you were true to your word because I had to reach out to you.
here I am.
And
I'm still
so,
here for you.
yeah, I know. It's super cool. So, yeah, that's what I've seen. And when I started my journey in 2010 and beyond, I remember meeting you and just your authenticity and your heart of gold. You have a golden heart that cares, and that's what really drew me toward you. And I'm so glad I had all of the opportunities to engage and to be a part of all of the work that we've been doing over the last. Now, let's see, that's 14
I
years.
know. It's like find your tribe. And I would say, if you
Yes,
can't find your tribe, create it.
that's it.
That's
That
always good
part.
too. Come sit near me. I need your energy. Yeah, we lift each other up. I'm very grateful. I'm also very excited about the Curitas Coach Program starting in Kaiser
Yes.
Permanente. It starts next month. The first
Yay.
cohort is booked for the year, but we're the first large system in the world to be able to have our own CCEP, Caritas Coach Education Program. And we're building a model that other systems might adopt, but we're the first. And, my bigger vision for the future is that I would love to see every nurse have a requisite that they become a Caritas coach as a part of their onboarding, education, or transition to practice. So that's the
Yeah.
bigger vision. But if people really are hungry for more, the CCEP program is a beautiful example of how to really, grow and thrive. And I'm so
Yeah,
pleased to be
absolutely.
able to bring it. And we've got 19 faculty signed up, and they're teaching our people. And in partnership with Jean and WCSI and Lori Gadance, we're really excited about that program. Reach out, join
Yeah.
LinkedIn, get in. You talk
Yes.
about connections and not withering out in the desert. Join LinkedIn, join Facebook. Stay connected to the social media. It is our world. Be a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jim. It was such a blessing. See, we went for an hour because we can. So thank you
That's
for
right.
ending the series. I know I'm not done. It's probably going to be a lot more because other people are like, "Hey, I want to share my story. I want to share my story." So it's been a really fulfilling ride for me for this last month, just to hear from all of the different change agents and to end it with you, where I believe it all started, for me when I started. So I'm just so grateful for all of the work that you do for us and all of the advocacy that you've done, all of the leadership and all of the, I feel like you have been the one that's like contending, making sure that this stays alive, even though it seems like it's not going to be alive, but you kept on and you kept persisting, and just to see the fruit is amazing. So thank
Thank
you
you.
again.
It's my joy. It's my purpose. And thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of your podcast series. I'm so happy for you and grateful for you, for all you've done to help spread the good word and to lift
Thank you,
others up.
Jim.
Thank you, Charlene.
I want to thank you for tuning in to another inspiring episode of When the Moment Chooses You. I'm your host, Coach Charlene, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Each journey we've shared today is a reminder that when the moment chooses you, the possibilities are endless.